few minutes after 6, folks. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to listen to the presentation and an update on the Gold Canyon Community Plan, specifically the community survey that was done earlier this year. I want to also welcome our live stream audience that are out there. Appreciate your interest as well. And I also just want to recognize right now our County Supervisor, Jeff Surdy, who just walked in. Thank you, Jeff, for your attendance. Appreciate if everyone would turn off their phones. We do have an agenda up front if you didn't grab it. And on the back of that is a survey of how this meeting went, as well as an opportunity for you to sign your name to begin to work with us on this endeavor. I'd like to recognize on our first slide our 4 partners, that being Pinal County. They've been excellent in helping us facilitate communications and giving us guidance and direction as we begin this process. Arizona State University obviously is a key player. The class that will be performing the plan started session this week, so we're looking forward to having them come out and you all getting introduced to them as our plan begins. Chamber of Commerce, Gold Canyon, Jody is here, the Executive Director. Thank you, Jody. And the Gold Canyon Alliance, another partner with us. So we're just happy to have the partners, but what I really want to say is you all are our partners. This is a community plan, it's a community endeavor, and we need you for the success of the plan. So again, thank you very much for being here. George? So the agenda tonight, we shouldn't keep you more than about an hour. I'm not going to go over the agenda specifically, but I did want to mention that the president of our board, Roberto Reveles, was unable to attend tonight, so I am pinch hitting for Roberto. My name is Steve Nauer. I'm a board member on Gold Canyon Community, Inc. I focus on the planning initiatives associated with our group. I've had 35 years of local government experience. I retired as a park director in Washington State. I have experience in strategic planning, land use planning, master planning, business planning. Before we really get into the details of the survey, which is what we're really here to talk about tonight, I just wanted to bring us back a little bit about planning in general. So let me just step back. When we first started talking about this was 2+ years ago, about a community plan, but it never got off the ground. So a number of folks started to talk about it again. And through those early conversations, many questions were asked by you all and others. What is a community plan? Why do we need a community plan? Why now? We don't understand. We like things the way they are. Well, folks, the reality is, and you see it every day, the East Valley and Gold Canyon, it's growing. It's growing rapidly. And it won't be long, it'll be knocking on the door of Gold Canyon. I think we can all appreciate and respect that that came very close just last summer with the amendment to the comp plan. So I think our timing is just perfect now for us to get together and develop a vision. We have no plan. Let's get a plan and let's plan for our future. Planning provides vision and direction. We plan for the continued preservation of the superstition wilderness. We plan to preserve our Sonoran Desert. We need to plan to have proper infrastructure in place before development begins. We need to plan so there are compatible land uses built adjacent to one another. Without that plan, we have no control, no vision, no direction. We all plan daily, on a daily basis, whether you know it or not. We financial plan, we retirement plan, we family plan, we plan to go on vacations. Planning gives one a sense of comfort. You're looking into the future, you have a plan. So I would just encourage you all, and I appreciate you all, to get engaged in this planning process. It's a community plan, it's your plan. In order for it to be successful, we need strong community input. George? The survey. Why did we do this? The survey? The survey had its challenges, and we wanted to come right out front and talk about those challenges. It was a short time frame. We were out less than 2 months for comments and responses from the community. We would have loved to have been out longer than that. But we had ASU, and we're very fortunate to have Arizona State University. By the way, they were asked by 41 communities throughout the state to do a community plan. They selected Gold Canyon. Hats off to us. We know we missed some important issues. Water was one that came up quite often. The survey was long. We initially thought we needed to be as comprehensive as possible. Next time we will be more focused. Some questions were long and confusing. We'll all agree with that. People represented and questioned what were our Gold Canyon Community Inc.'s real interest and motivation. Well, our real interest and motivation is bringing this community together to help facilitate a process that'll bring us together and get us stronger. People commented that not all community groups were involved. Well, I can assure you all community groups in this community were asked to participate. Some participated more than others. But I can also tell you, and you will see tonight, we had a broad base of community folks helping facilitate the survey and do an analysis of the survey, which we'll be sharing with you shortly. George? Did you move? Just did it. Executive summary. Executive summary. Sorry, folks. The executive summary. People love what we have here. Don't touch it, right? We all said that. We love Gold Canyon the way it is. We love our quality of life. We love the low density that this community offers. We love the scenery, the amenities, our recreation opportunities. That came out loud and clear in the survey. We love our low density, rural feel that Gold Canyon represents. We love the open space. We love the idea of maintaining low-density residential north of the 60, commercial high-density industrial south of the 60, right? That was loud and clear, and it has been consistently. Our residents seem to like land use like North Scottsdale or the Cave Creek corridor, a more rural feeling, homey feel, just like we have here. That's why this plan is so important, to help preserve what we have. Infrastructure needs to happen, George. Infrastructure needs to happen. Traffic safety nor infrastructure deficiencies. They need to be in place before development begins. South of the 60, let the high density development. North of the 60, let's keep our community. It was also interesting to note that when we looked at the demographics in the survey, the younger folks were even more adamant that they wanted to maintain the environmental quality that we have. Adamant about no industry north of the 60. Adamant about less housing growth. So that's a snapshot. We're going to get into the details now of the survey. And I also wanted to say, let's reserve your questions. We're going to have a question and answer when we're done. That will help facilitate our speakers a little bit quicker. At this time, I would like to introduce Jerry Stevenson, who, along with a few other community folks, is going to dig into the details of the survey. Jerry?
Hey, good evening, neighbors. My name is Jerry Stevenson. When I retired 12 years ago, I left Washington State and found Gold Canyon. I'm a resident of Mountain Brook, and I'm very active in the HOA there. And previous to my retirement, I was with IBM. This is really fantastic to have this opportunity to play back to you the survey and how we got there, and Steve gave you a high level. If we could just go to the first slide. I'm going to talk about the survey processes, the survey analysis, the team that got together, and I'm going to give you some of the demographics that come out of the study. And as you see throughout this, we'll be talking about demographics, and we'll be feeding back the answers to the questions and your comments, and I think you'll find it very informative. Next slide, George. What we started, as Steve said, we've been in place for a couple of years, and for this study, we worked with the county, we worked with ASU, we worked with other partners, including the Alliance, and other individuals in the community to put together a questionnaire. And it's 30 questions. As Steve said, it's not perfect, but it gave us a great data point and a great baseline of the community and where we are, where we came from, and what we're looking forward to. So what we did was we put this together with Pinal County. They've got a SurveyMonkey-like tool, and I know you've all done surveys, and rather than us going and buying or renting one, they had it, and it's going to be very useful as we move forward because the institutional data that we've got for us, which is an unincorporated community, is going to be probably a baseline that they can use in other communities as well. So we think this is going to serve a broader base than just for Gold Canyon. But more importantly, it's for us, and thanks again for filling it out, and the survey ran through October. Now, in November, we put together a team of 12 people. Some of them are here, some of them are in the audience, and some of them are on live stream. And it was a cross-section of community individuals, including the Alliance and Chamber of Commerce, and it stretched from Entrada del Oro on the east, to Peralta, to Gold Canyon, and to Superstition Mountain Country Club. So we had a really good mix of community input. Not every community was represented, but it was really important that this became something that was not just by a small group of people. Next slide, please. So what we've done now, as Steve said, is we've handed off this information, and ASU, they've got 36 students who just started yesterday, and they've got 3 months of curriculum dedicated to Gold Canyon. And they're going to come out to Gold Canyon in 2 weeks, and they're going to do a tour with Jeff Surdy and others, and see what it's like out here, get an experience of Arizona state land and the remoteness of some of the communities, as well as the beauty out here. So that's a really important module. And then they're going to work with us, and we'll go into it a little bit more on the planning side. But that was really the phase. So we're just finishing that with a community feedback and handed it off to ASU. Next slide, please. This took us a period of time. We worked very closely with, as I said, with Pinal and ASU, and especially the core team to develop the survey, get it out there, get the responses, and then give it back to you in management terms so you can understand it, take it back, and we could provide more information, as you'll see, and we could also present this to your HOAs, et cetera, as we get further on into the year. Next slide, please. This committee, as I said, was a group of, on the left-hand side, although you can't read it all, really important. And this is going to be online, and you can get handouts of this as well if you wanted to dig in deeper. And I can't, there was some confusion, as Steve said, that the county was running this and ASU was running it, and we were in control. The citizens set this up. We use them, and they're going to use this data because it's very important that this data is used and as the county plans as well. It's not just going to be put on the shelf. Big part of the student work effort is going to be done with the planning department in the county. Next slide. In 2020, our group did a mini survey on Facebook and Nextdoor, and this one on the right, which we just did, was much more comprehensive, and many more people contributed. And we see going through surveys through time, probably on a more granular basis with more specific questions and issues and opportunities. Next slide, please, George. What we've done is, from a graphic point of view, what is your age range? I just use that as an example of some of the richness that's in here. The median age in Gold Canyon is over 60 years old. And if you take a look at 55 plus, that's the blue. 55 and under is the orange. So right now, since it's a retirement destination, also there's homes and businesses, et cetera, that preponderance of people is very different than Santan, for instance. And yet that's the way we are, and that's probably the way it's going to go. Now, as we have more homes and more development, obviously that will change. Next slide, please. What's your education level? This is just put out as a data point to show the differences by age, because one of the issues we want to make sure was that the study we did with such a sway towards, people over 55, that everybody understood that, by the way, the generation who's following is also a big part of it, because in some cases surveys are thrown out because, oh, you didn't check this, you didn't check that. So we want to make sure that it was representative of the total community. Next slide, please. Another important metric on the left is, a lot of people come here on a seasonal basis. Now, the average is around 30% in this study, and there are some communities, like in Mountain Brook, where I am, it's more like 55% are seasonal. They come and they go. For 55% of us go back or travel in the summer. So that's an important data point. A lot of other communities are very different, On the right-hand side, you'll see the big red part is adults only. So this is very, not a lot of children, not a lot of families, and you know how the school system is here. It's pretty small, and everybody goes to Apache Junction because we don't have a really critical mass. So there's no surprises here. It's more just a playback of the profile of our community. Next slide, please. Now, there's a question about where does Gold Canyon start and stop, and if you're doing planning, what's next to you from a planning point of view or next community is really important. So where the combination is, where they come together, if you have housing on one side, business on another, or business and business, exactly how that's defined is pretty important at the planning stages. So where do you have the town centers? Where do you have the major intersections? Where do you have the homes? Where do you have the businesses? And basically, when we talked to Jeff, because there's so much unincorporated area here, it seemed like this would be a good module, and since there's no planning done in this area, going along 60 and down to Florence Junction and over towards Queen Valley seems to be our orbit. On the other side of 60, I don't think we have any affinity really, but we certainly do to Superior and to the rest of the mountain folks. So we could debate that, but that was also something that everybody else thought was a good idea when we did the survey. Not everybody, but it seemed like a good data point. I don't know how many of you pay attention to like DOT and planning, but there's a lot of things going in, as Steve alluded to, moving this way from Queen Creek, from Apache Junction with the D.R. Horton business. There's roads you've heard about, Highway 24, Ray Road. They're all around us and they're being planned, so things are coming. The important thing is we're at the planning table, we're seeing that coming, and as a community, we need to be prepared for this and be unified and talk about, more elements that are coming and how we want to see this develop, because we're a key player. We're the key stakeholders here. Okay, now I'd like to introduce Isabel. She's going to talk about a few interesting items as well. Thanks, George.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Isabel Peterson, and I need my cheat sheet here because I cannot read the slides up there. Let's see. My husband and I moved to Gold Canyon, actually Peralta Trails, about a year ago. And for the same reason that everybody else moved here, because we love the scenery, because we love the open space, we just loved it here. We moved from Chandler, Arizona, so not very far, and we very specifically chose to invest in this community because of the scenery and the open space and the nature and everything else. So 6 months into our living here, we found out that we might see an industrial complex right next to us. And so we thought, no, this is not what we wanted. And so I thought, okay, so we need to do something about this. What can we do? I looked around a little bit on social media. I found the Gold Canyon Alliance. I decided to become active. So my start was to do some volunteer work with the Alliance. And then the news came, we don't have an industrial complex next to us, at least not for now. And then I thought, okay, so how long is this going to take until something else is going to happen like that? Because of an interest in preservation and conservation, I started to work with salt. So I contacted Charlie Goff, who welcomed me and sat down with me, and it was a very strong learning curve because there was a lot to learn about conservation issues. And from salt, then we all heard about the survey. And I thought, I would like to become involved with this because I have some professional background in surveys. And so I contacted GCCI. I said I would like to help out. Again, they welcomed me, and this is how I became involved with GCCI and the survey. So I looked a little bit at the questions before they were formed as a survey, and then later on became involved with the analysis. So this is why I'm here today, because I was very happy to see the results. And I think that many of us will see that this is exactly how they think also. The vast majority of people in Gold Canyon are very opposed to any type of heavy industry. What we would like to see is preservation of our lifestyle. And so here's what we found out, so I'm going to show you a couple of things. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about what did you say, why you moved here? Why did we all move here? Who are we? A little bit of statistics. What do we want for new residential development, if there has to be residential development? Okay, so many people said there shouldn't be, but if there was to be some type of residential development, what should it look like? So, a few stats first. Why did you move to Gold Canyon? Let's see, for this, I guess I need my glasses. All right. As you can see, scenery is the overwhelming majority. People moved here for the scenery because it's incredibly beautiful here. Climate and weather, we'll see later why that becomes important. Of course, we like the climate. We like the mild winters. And then, of course, the overall community character. We chose Gold Canyon. We chose because it's different from a lot of the other places here in the valley, and we love how it looks. Of course, housing quality is something that people checked off, and the regional location. So even people who already lived in Arizona, lived in the area, chose Gold Canyon to live because it is such a beautiful place. At this point, I'd also like to point out, when you look at this particular slide, you again see this orange block on the left of the bar and the blue block on the right of the bar. And again, the orange block represents the under 55 age group. So there was a little bit of a question before we got started with the survey that maybe the younger people in Gold Canyon don't have the same ideas as the older people do. And that turned out not to be true, and the survey results very clearly demonstrate that. If we can have the next slide, please. How long have people lived or worked here? Vast majority, not that long, 1 to 5 years. Then the next larger group is 11 to 20 years, 6 to 10 years, and it goes just down from there. So a lot of us are relatively new here, including the under 55 group people. So everybody moved here knowing what they would expect and appreciating what we have here in Gold Canyon. Next slide, please. Where did you move from? Okay, Midwest, we knew that, right? A lot of people moved here from the Midwest. I would think because of the weather, because we have these marvelous mild winters. But a lot of people also moved here from a surrounding town or city. So like myself, from Chandler, Arizona, so it's not that far. And we looked around, we looked in other places in the valley, and we chose Gold Canyon because it is just so unmatched in its beauty. A lot of people also come from the Northwest, and so it trickles down from there. Some people from California, from the Northeast, and so on. And the next slide, please. Of course, we kind of were interested in, where do you live? Like what's the neighborhood you live in here in Gold Canyon? And Again, the largest number of respondents lives in Mountain Brook. It's a large community, obviously, as opposed to if you go down to El Camino Viejo area, that's not that large, so that's definitely represented here. And again, when you look at the age distribution, you see with Mountain Brook, clearly it's a retirement community, a designated retirement community, so you have a lot of older people, but that changes when you go to Peralta Trails. You see that there's quite a bit of younger people having moved to Peralta Trails, including me and my husband. And Kings Ranch Road is a larger area also. And the next one, please. Where do you work? Okay, many of us are retired. They don't work at all. And that's one of the reasons why it's never really come up that people needed employment here, because it attracted people who didn't have to commute, who didn't have to go work. So the largest number of respondents is retired, and it's pretty clear there's, I think, a very small orange sliver in that first bar. So kudos to you if you manage to retire before the age of 60, that's marvelous. Some people work from home, like myself. I work full-time from home. I do not have to commute. Obviously, lots of people are in the same boat. Where do other people work? In the neighboring community, whatever that was, or they go to Phoenix and so on. So that gives us an idea as to what the need for employment is in our area. And the next slide, please. Where do you get all information about our community? So we just wanted to see, so what's effective in getting information out and what is not. Social media, everybody, regardless of age, everybody, a lot of people at least, are on social media, followed by local newspapers, local publications, HOA newsletters. If you are in an HOA that keeps you informed, wonderful, congrats to you. Ours is not that active. Local conversations. We all talk to our neighbors, we meet as we go on walks, and we talk about what's going on in Gold Canyon. Mailings, of course, and newsletters, and we have a marvelous public radio station in Gold Canyon, so some people get a little bit of information from that. And again, you see there's no discrepancy in terms of age group. As the bars get smaller, as we move towards the end, the orange bar is the same descent as the blue bars. In the next slide, please. Here's where it gets really interesting, in my opinion. So, we get statistical information, but you really get to know people a little bit when you look at the comments that they wrote. And this refers to the open-ended questions that were asked and the space that was given for people to write in comments. And here's how we worked with the survey analysis. So we were given a list of all the raw comments, just, in a Word document, a few pages, and we were separated into pairs, and I worked with Charlie Goff on this, where we were asked to look through all of them and look at what are the major themes that are apparent. Okay, so we were trying to find out what do most people agree upon, and what's the red thread that works through the entire survey. And so when I say summary of comments, we kind of put the primary reasons for why people move to Gold Canyon and what do residents want. We put them together into one because they couldn't really be separated. People were saying one after another pretty much the same thing. And it was kind of heartbreaking to actually see the incredible passion with which residents were pleading to please not destroy Gold Canyon, to please keep its character the way it is, and not make it disappear, and not, again, destroy was the word that was used quite often. So, those points, those themes that came up from those two sections was that people really like living here. Why? Because it's peaceful, because it's quiet, there's very quaint ambience, and of course, an incredible scenic beauty. A lot of people actually mentioned the dark sky environment, and I was surprised to see this because it's very important to me, but I wasn't sure whether other people would feel the same way. Dark skies are important to a lot of us, as people have mentioned in the survey, in their comments. They say it must be preserved as much as the desert landscape must be preserved. Many are saying no commercial or industrial development. They would like to maintain Gold Canyon's residential character. And a lot of people, including from the under 55 age group, say, you know what, why do we need development here? We don't want development. We moved here because there is no development, so please don't destroy this for us. Residents specifically chose to invest into Gold Canyon as a residential community because they wanted to be away from it all. The one thing that people were saying that they would like to see is walking trails, new hiking trails, new biking trails, and in general, some more recreational opportunity. Some people said, and again, this is a repeated comment, if we're going to overdevelop this area, they're going to leave. Okay, so they don't even want to stay here because it would be destroyed for why they came here. So thank you for already changing the slide. Some of these representative survey comments, and I can't tell you how difficult it was to just distill this down to those 4 that you see on here, because initially I said we need at least 20, and I could not assert myself for that, and it would be too much to read them all to you. So 4 of them, they very much represent what people were saying, and so they were chosen because of certain keywords in there that were repeated more than once. The first one, Gold Canyon is a bedroom community, a peaceful oasis to return to after working elsewhere. Next one, I think Gold Canyon's unique character is so closely tied to the mountain terrain, the dark skies, the quiet neighborhoods, that any changes to that plan will ruin the experience for us all. I don't mind driving a few miles for services so that, in return, I get to experience the quiet, majestic beauty of Gold Canyon. No place else like this. Third one. It's very important to me that our dark skies and beautiful desert are preserved. We would like to have quiet lifestyles, which is why we moved here. I plan to stay here for years to come, and I would like to raise a family here. But if more major developments come to Gold Canyon, I will have no desire to stay here. It would be an absolute shame to destroy the environment for things we can drive 12 miles away for. And the last one, for now, we need to preserve the nature and beauty of our environment and not overbuild and increase the population density of our community. We don't need industry, noise, crime, pollution, and light pollution to destroy our community. So you can see from those comments the passion that comes out of that. People were very adamant and very, very passionate. There's something I wanted to say, and now I can't think of it. Anyway, it probably comes to me very, very soon. Thank you for the next slide already. Some statistics again. What kind of new residential development would you like to see if there has to be residential development? Okay, and as you can see, again, I invite you to look at the orange versus the blue parts of the bars. The majority of people, regardless of age, said, well, if we have to have some, let's have single-family homes. The second group, same thing with age, said, no development at all, please. Very clearly, you see the third bar, again, housing older people say, hey, how about some senior citizen housing? The younger people don't see that as much. And the next one is mixed use, commercial, residential. And from all I've seen from the comments, I think commercial is interpreted here as very light commercial, small stores, something like that, certainly not warehouses or anything of that kind. Some people would like to see townhomes, some people condos, affordable housing, and not a lot of people want to see apartments. So again, summary of comments. These were the comments specific to that particular survey section. 3 things: maintain the single-family or residential feel to preserve Gold Canyon. Good design, people were saying, is important. So we need to make sure that it fits the area. So let's have some discussion of that. How is it going to look like? Somebody says, and maybe you recognize yourself in those comments, okay? So somebody said, and this is a direct quote from the survey, we're not going to be able to hold things constant. We need to anticipate. We don't want overdevelopment that destroys what makes Gold Canyon unique. Second point, minimize new housing. If we have to have new housing, let's keep it minimal. Definitely no medium to high density development, and no zero lot line developments. You know, these are the neighborhoods where there's almost no space between the houses, you know, where there's like nothing in between. And again, some representative comments, and Glenn Legas, who is next, will talk more about that. Additional housing will bring restaurants, stores, and support services that residents need. A modest medical facility would be okay, but should not include commercial development. So that's the part I was talking about. Glenn Legas is going to continue it.
Thank you, Isabel. Evening, folks. How you doing? Good. My name is Glenn Legas, and I'm here to talk about what the community would like to see in non-residential development. But first, let me introduce myself. I retired about 5 years ago from the U.S. Marshal Service, and since then I've been a security consultant and author. My last years with the Marshal Service, I was very involved in working with developing policy and planning and budgets. So this is kind of somewhat familiar ground. I got really involved with the Gold Canyon Alliance this last summer when they formed to oppose industry development between Peralta and Entrada del Oro. More recently, we had the opportunity to look at the survey that was coming down the road, and the Alliance very much supported getting the word out to get the survey done. And we got to preview it, and we offered some input as to what some of the questions could be better, and had some input in helping to form that. And then post-survey, we've got this analysis process going on, and there were a lot of comments. And so there are several of us from the Alliance that helped with doing the analysis and being part of that team. And so now I'm here to share what the community, what the respondents were looking for in non-residential development when they were asked about that. Next screen. I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is what the respondents' priorities were for non-residential development. The top 7 were all small-type businesses that would support residential communities. The 8th one was none. We don't want any development. Now, at the very bottom was a category called Other, which wasn't really quantifiable, so I'm going to skip over that. And the bottom 3 above that were all about industry. Those were what they chose the least. Next screen. The comments about commercial development all kind of revolved around, we came here to escape commercial development. We're looking for open spaces. We want the nature. We can drive to shopping and services. So they're opposing any industry and large business north of 60. They think all of that kind of development should be south of the 60. There were several comments about restaurants and small businesses would be okay. Next. Again, the representative comments that you see on the screen, and I'm not going to take the time to read them all to you, but they're all about wild spaces, nature, open spaces, the mountain scenery, dark skies, as Isabel said. They want to live in a small community. That's why they moved here, quiet and away from the city. And one of the typical comments up there, typical in tone, but the quote is, we need to fight crappy development. Next screen. So the planning priorities for the respondents, the top 3 were all about nature. The next 6 were all about community. The last 2 were schools and government. Next screen. So again, the summary of the comments for planning priorities, a lot of preservation, a lot of conservation. Infrastructure concerns were mentioned quite often, traffic and congestion. Several times frustration with the zoning and development process was expressed. And again, it was reiterated, no industry, no big business north of the 60. There were a lot of comments about needing more community connectivity. So that's one of the things that we're up here trying to do is bring the community together, at least in terms of speaking and communicating and working together. Next. There was a question about the effectiveness of local government, and half the folks said no, they didn't think so. About 30% didn't know, and about 20% said yes, government's effective. Now, when you look at some of the comments about the government and the planning process, it speaks to a lack of connection with the process and with some of the things that are going on and how to obtain that information. Folks want to oppose merging with AJ. There was some discussion about a special assessment area, which is an interesting off-point topic. There were a lot of complaints about the comprehensive plan amendment process and why the alliance formed and why people got so up in arms over that. So part of the opposition there was the process and the way things were handled, and that came out in the comments very clearly. And there was a cry for government not allowing unbridled expansion. But I know that since I've been involved with this the last 6-9 months, I've seen Supervisor Surdy meet with community groups. I know he's had a couple open houses, so folks are working on trying to establish better communications and open those lines and let people know that you can be heard. I mean, I certainly got heard a couple times. So there's those meetings. Next. The other comments, the community groups kind of took a hit. A lot of folks said, hey, you folks seem to be working against each other. We need our community groups to work together and to talk with each other and to not be fighting at cross purposes. Hence, we have a mixed panel up here. So we're trying to work on that. There was comments that the government services needed to keep pace with any development that does happen. Several folks mentioned Peralta access to Kings Ranch Road. Preservation came up a lot. And then there was a lot of comments on the poor communications infrastructure in terms of phone service and internet, that kind of thing. And there were some comments about folks wanting better recycling opportunities. Next screen. Next. So this is just kind of a little bubble chart of the hot themes that you saw today and heard. Next up, Steve's going to talk to you about what the next steps in the process are, and these are the survey results. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, Glenn, Isabel, for that. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are the next steps for the Gold Canyon Community Plan? Go ahead, one more. You can see, as we just discussed, the current, what we're calling phase 1 of the community plan, is really geared more towards land use, zoning, kind of property management, if you will, development as well. But we're also looking at a phase 2 of the Gold Canyon Community Plan that will come later this year into 2023, and that is to be focused more on, I will say, infrastructure, transportation, water, those types of things. So stay tuned for that. We're talking with ASU. It'll more than likely be another graduate class that's more focused on those types of activities rather than land use. But phase 1, what we're under now, is not the end of this. A good planning process is an ongoing process, and that's how we envision this happening. Next slide, please. So what's happening now? As Jerry had said, the graduate class of 36 just started the semester this week, okay? So they will be gathering input January through April from you all, from us, as they come out and visit the community and engage in the community. We're looking at May, when that semester is over, to publish the phase 1 of the Gold Canyon Community Plan, much like having a meeting like this. In June, we are hopeful that we will then secure the phase 2 of the plan with Arizona State University. Throughout the summer now, beginning right now, there'll be community meetings to review the process and the progress of the plan. So rest assured, I mean, we heard a lot of comments during the survey. It wasn't long enough. Many winter visitors weren't here. There will be ample opportunity, I assure you, throughout our process to continue to give us feedback on what you think, what your priorities are, what you like and don't like. So stay tuned to that for sure. As I said a number of times, the success of this plan, the community's plan, your plan, is based on your input and feedback. So I want to thank you all for attending, but before I do, I think it's important to note that all of us are volunteers. We're your friends, we're your neighbors, and we feel strongly about providing some direction, or at least facilitating with you some direction for our community that obviously we love so much. So you too are volunteers just by being here today. Those of you live streaming are volunteers. We encourage you to continue to be engaged in our process. As I said on the back of that agenda sheet up front, there's an opportunity on the back to fill out how we did tonight, but there's also an opportunity to check that box that says, yes, I want to participate, I want to jump on the boat, I want to be part of this. So we really are looking forward to gathering more and more community input. So at this time, we'd love to have a conversation, answer any questions you may have, write down any comments you may have, and have a little dialogue, if you will. We're here, a few others are here that can answer some questions. That mic is live, so anybody that might have a comment, question, we'd love to hear some feedback. Go ahead and step up to the mic, and you can ask that question, and we'll see who can answer it. Mr. Jeff Surdy, number 1, here he comes.
Is the mic live?
It is live.
So the folks that were disappointed that the winter people didn't get to participate, I think those survey results would have just been more amplified. And the people that did take it did send a message, slow it down, not a lot of development is what everybody wants. And I can't see that the people that weren't here would have answered any differently. And also early on, you mentioned how many other cities and communities were vying for this project, and it is quite a privilege. That's why the hurry to do it now, not wait a year or two. You may not get a chance like this again. So it is a big deal to get ASU, one of the most prestigious colleges in the country, to work with you on this. So that's what I was pleased with, and glad you guys jumped on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Others? Don't be shy, folks. We're in this together.
Chuck Cafaro, I live in Mountain Brook. The surrounding beauties, there's nothing to say about it. But as I drive through Arizona, I really love Arizona's Department of Transportation, what it does with the highways, you know, the engravings, the quail rocks, whatever they do. It's amazing to me. I've lived in several states, how much beautification they put in. But I find the I-60 corridor that goes through our area, it's pretty trashy, weedy. I mean, if we could somehow or other get together with DOT or whatever and beautify the I-60 corridor, you know, starting from Superstition Mountain Drive, let's say, you know, east, I think it'd do a lot for the community. So I don't know who works on that. I see you have an aesthetics committee. I don't know if aesthetics includes that. Yeah. But
Let me answer that. Jerry actually chairs our transportation group, but I can tell you that we have been talking to them about beautification and sight lines specifically when you pull out onto the 60. And I can also say a number of months ago, Dave, 9 months ago maybe, we spoke with DOT about a community group doing some beautification to the 60, specifically the median, to try to get out some of the invasives, maybe plant some new plants. We talked to our local landscape company owner. He was willing to participate. But it's a policy that DOT doesn't really let citizens work within the median. Now, the right-of-way and trash, that may be something a little bit different. But believe me, I think we all feel what you just said. The 60 could look a lot nicer, especially with a community like ours as it gets more and more popular. So we'll continue to keep our eye on that. I appreciate that comment. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ron Pagani, and I live in Mountain Brook Village. Obviously, from the echo, I think you can all hear me. Is that correct? Okay. First of all, I might comment that let's all raise our hands if we feel we're the luckiest people in the world right here. Right here. And I've been in Arizona 45 years now. And this is the best. This is the best location. Absolutely. Now, relative to the survey, and people who know me are aware of my economic principles, you know. And I noticed that we didn't get into economics very much in the survey. And one of the glaring issues in the economic situation is our taxes are twice of what they are not 10 miles west of here in Maricopa County. Our taxes are double what theirs are, and mainly because of school issues and the fact that the Arizona State Land Trust System has jumped over Pinal County, which might be a good thing, and does not participate very much in our development programs. And I've been to a meeting where the gal came once to talk about how important they are as a group out of the governor's office. But we need to have them here and see if we can get some help with our taxes. Now, so far, those of us who are lucky to afford to be here because we planned well and all that good stuff, we can't all be Wall Street tycoons like Chuck over here. You know, we have to watch our finances, and to forget that aspect of our development, I think, is notable. And I would like to see questions relative to our financial situation being maybe improved. And this is certainly off this particular subject, but we were given the notice that the Arizona or Apache Junction Unified School District is needing to spend $11 million this year because the money has come from somewhere, and we know where, to spend on something, and we don't know what. And my suggestion was, pay my property taxes. How about that? And my school taxes. And let's give us a break here, because it's going to come back on us. I don't want to get political, but we've got some problems coming down the pike, inflation and all that jazz. But anyway, relative to the survey, maybe we could put some economic questions in the future, because I think they may be a factor as time goes by. Thank you.
Appreciate that comment, Ron, so noted. And maybe the survey this fall, when we get into that phase 2, we can get some of the economic financial into it. Appreciate that, thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Phil Todd, and I live in Mesa del Oro. To answer this gentleman's question is a very simple answer. Chandler has Intel. People don't pay much taxes in Chandler because it's coming from the corporation. For some of us that have been here, we were promised by Supervisor House that if the Resolution copper mine ever got open, they were going to get $3 million a year in taxes from the copper mine. The last meeting I went to, the lady from Resolution Copper said, well, we've got about 10 years of answering all of the legal questions, so we might be able to produce copper around 35 years from now. I will not be here to get any benefits for Resolution Copper, for sure. I do want to thank the committee for what it's doing. I had the pleasure of going to Santan and listening to Supervisor Goodman try to answer the questions of over 100 people that was totally fed up and disgusted with the fact that they had no infrastructure, no roads, and they couldn't get their people out. But they were building the 700, the 800, the 850 housing complexes one after another. And then the people couldn't go anyway. And one lady was trying to walk her 5-year-old daughter across the street to the school, and she couldn't do it. But they ended up, one of their answers was to put speed bumps on all the roads so that it slow down the traffic in Santan. We don't need that. We don't need that here. We need to plan where we go and how we get there. And, you know, they're talking about SR 24, and I fully understand the reason for that. Everybody I've talked to from Queen Valley, Peralta, Entrada del Oro, Mesa del Oro, you know, our life is not going to change here. We're going to go shopping at Bash's or Signal Butte or Power Road. You know, for us to get on SR 24 and then drive many miles out of the way to get to those stores, it's not going to help us. We're going to have our 5 traffic lights for the rest of our life. You know, we need to think about that. Thank you very much.
Others? Everyone must be hungry. You want to go home for dinner. Last chance. Anybody else? We all so appreciate you coming, spending an hour or so with us. Stay tuned. I want to remind you that the first Saturday of every month, we have a meeting. Some have been live, some are live streamed. You can go to our website, Gold Canyon Community, Inc., get updates. We'd love to see you at our board meetings that first Saturday of each month. Stay tuned as this project and process continues, and hopefully we will see you and many, many others again over the next few months. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.